Welcome to This Explainer. Right off the bat, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Over 80% of enterprise AI projects right now, they're operating completely outside of upcoming legal frameworks. That's a massive deal. Because the era of the trust us black box AI, it is officially dead. For the last few years, the tech world has been totally obsessed with model capabilities, building these giant opaque systems that spit out incredible things but give us literally zero visibility into how they actually make decisions. But listen, the landscape has completely shifted. Today, we're diving into a reality that enterprise leaders desperately need to wake up to. Unregulated, unexplainable AI experimentation isn't just risky anymore, it's rapidly becoming a massive legal and operational liability. We are quite literally witnessing an extinction event for ungoverned AI.
To really grasp where we're headed, we have to lock down the absolute core ethos of enterprise AI right this second. And it's this: I advise, humans decide. If your AI system doesn't have a human in the loop making that final call, it's not a strategic tool at all. It's a profound liability. We're moving completely away from fully autonomous, consequential execution without any oversight. The new gold standard? It is all about explicit human authority.
And this actually exposes a massive gaping hole between having an AI policy document sitting on a desk somewhere and having actual hard technical control. Ask yourself this right now: if your system makes a highly consequential decision and you cannot mathematically reconstruct exactly why it made it, or you can't hit a hard stop button to halt it in its tracks, do you actually govern it? Seriously, are you governing it, or are you just crossing your fingers and hoping it decides to behave? The truth is, these trust us governance claims, if they don't have hard technical enforcement mechanisms, they are entirely useless in a regulated environment.
Which brings us to the fundamental paradigm shift we're unpacking today. We have to contrast the outdated, super fragile method of paper policies against what is absolutely necessary for the future: executable infrastructure. Think about it. Most AI governance today is just advisory documentation, sort of loosely layered around a completely uncontrolled system. But the future relies on execution control. That means embedding explicit gates, escalation rules, and human authority directly into the AI's runtime path. Governance is no longer some checklist you fill out after the fact. It literally has to be code embedded into the system's DNA.
Chapter 1: The Global Regulatory Shift.
So I want to walk you through the EU AI Act timeline, just to prove that this isn't some theoretical sci-fi problem set for a distant future. No, the clock is already ticking. The Act officially entered into force in August 2024. Fast forward to February 2025, and prohibited AI practices are banned outright, period. And by August 2026, the incredibly strict rules for high-risk AI systems fully apply. You really need to pay close attention to the specific classifications in Annex II too. If you're operating an AI system in a high-risk category, we're talking employment screening, critical infrastructure, healthcare, you are going to need adequate risk assessments, high-quality data sets, and rigorous logging to ensure absolute traceability of your results. The pressure cooker is already on, folks.
And hey, it is not just Europe. The FDA is actively, and I mean aggressively, enforcing strict validation rules right here in the US, especially under 21 CFR Part 11 and 211.100 for software as a medical device. Take the recent FDA scrutiny, for example, like the Purolea warning letter. They are requiring AI decisions in healthcare to be attributable, original, and above all, reconstructible. You actually have to submit predetermined change control plans now. Think about that. If your medical AI cannot be mathematically audited to prove exactly why it made a specific patient recommendation, it simply will not survive regulatory scrutiny. There's no way around it.
Now, this brilliantly illustrates how high-level laws actually translate into mandatory internal plumbing. We can map the EU AI Act expectations directly to technical controls within the DaVinciA Plus framework. Take Article 14, for example, which mandates human oversight. You absolutely cannot satisfy that with a written policy. It requires a hard-coded routing matrix where human approval is mandatory, like technically mandatory for critical outputs. Or what about Article 19 on updates? That requires absolute version pinning, meaning no update can be deployed without formal CTO or oversight board approval. Hard stop.
Chapter 2: Anatomy of a Failure.
Right now, there are 3 critical failure modes that will completely destroy an AI system's chain of evidence and regulatory standing. And honestly, if your enterprise is building AI right now, there's a very high chance you're falling into one of these traps as we speak. Let's break them down one by one.
First up, the most catastrophic failure of all, the self-deciding workflow.
This happens when developers decide to bypass hard, deterministic SQL gates and instead rely on the AI's own system prompt to govern itself. I mean, they literally pass the user's intent to a large language model and ask it, hey, are you allowed to do this? That is an absolute disaster for compliance. It leaves the entire system wide open to hallucination and prompt injection. The bottom line? An AI simply cannot be its own judge and jury. It just doesn't work.
Okay, failure number 2 is what we call leaky pipelines and soft escalations. So the crucial point here is that if an error in a policy node just defaults to passing the payload along, or maybe it just slaps a little soft warning disclaimer on an output instead of doing a hard pause on execution, well, you've just bypassed human authority entirely. If a guardrail is triggered, the system has to halt and escalate to a human in the loop. A disclaimer is not governance, it is an abdication of responsibility. Honestly, it's like putting a wet floor sign over a broken bridge.
And the third failure is mutable evidence storage. Imagine for a second storing your system's operational logs in a standard shared drive, or maybe an unlocked database where records can just be overwritten, altered, or deleted at will. If your logs cannot be mathematically verified as completely unalterable, your AI is legally ungovernable. Under strict validation rules, every single decision has to be contemporaneously recorded in an append-only log. It's simple. If the evidence can change, you have no evidence at all.
Chapter 3, the DaVinciA+ Blueprint. To really understand this blueprint, we have to reinforce its core thesis. AI must not act unless it is explicitly allowed to act. We're moving entirely away from a world of model centricity, where we just let the model figure things out on the fly, and moving into a world of strict system governance. It's all about establishing the exact, rigid conditions under which intelligence is even permitted to operate.
So this blueprint serves as the bone structure for compliant AI. It guides systems through some incredibly strict qualification phases. First, you have the installation qualification, which verifies that tools are deployed to exact, precise specifications. Next up is operational qualification, testing that those escalation pathways respond precisely as designed. And finally, performance qualification, which ensures reliable behavior in actual real-world live workflows. This isn't new, by the way. This is validation discipline pulled straight from highly regulated environments and applied directly to AI runtime behavior.
So how do these 3 layers actually transform an opaque black box into a highly controlled, safe space? Well, Layer 1 focuses entirely on identity and intent. It formally defines the system's exact purpose and its strict non-goals, which completely prevents scope drift. Then you move into Layer 2, knowledge and logic. This governs the internal machinery by strictly controlling data sources and agent permissions. And finally, Layer 3 is oversight and audit. This is where mandatory human-in-the-loop controls are physically embedded into the system, guaranteeing that every single action is recorded. It basically creates explicit boundaries and incredibly tightly controlled delegation pathways.
Chapter 4, the evidence vault.
I absolutely love this concept. Instead of asking teams to describe what happened, the system automatically records what actually happened. Listen, manual compliance checklists are completely useless in the fast-paced world of AI. The system itself must generate the evidence organically as it operates. Every single prompt, every guardrail trigger, every human sign-off, it all gets logged into an immutable vault. This totally shifts governance from being a reactive manual chore into an inherent automated property of the system itself.
And this ties directly into the gold standards of global risk management frameworks, like the NIST AI Risk Management Framework. NIST outlines these key characteristics of trustworthy AI. Systems absolutely must be valid, reliable, safe, secure, and above all, accountable and transparent. While the DaVinciA+ Evidence Vault provides the exact objective, reconstructible evidence required to actually prove to auditors that your system meets those rigorous NIST characteristics.
So to summarize what we've really learned today, the future of enterprise AI is highly, highly regulated. The grace period for wild black box experimentation, it is officially over. Frameworks like DaVinciA+ provide the disciplined foundation that is absolutely necessary to scale safe, responsible, and traceable AI. Because when it comes down to it, in this new regulatory reality, the framework that securely holds the evidence is the one that holds the contract.
I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to take back to your teams today. Look closely at the systems you are building or buying right now. Is your enterprise's AI actually under your explicit technical control today, backed with reconstructible evidence, or are you just hoping it decides to behave? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those hard questions, and I'll see you next time.